Thanks for joining us during this 6-hour webathon, broadcasting live from Jerusalem, focusing on raising temple consciousness by exploring the biblical, historical, contemporary, and political issues surrounding the Temple Mount, the holiest site in the world. Rabbi Maurice Navon is a member of the P'til Techelet Association, dedicated to teaching the people of Israel all about the commandment of the lost biblical blue and making the color available once again. He lectures extensively on Techelet and has written a great deal on the subject. He has also published many articles on other Jewish topics. He is a computer design engineer by trade, with professional experience in the research and development of digital hardware for over 20 years, working with such companies as NASA and IBM. The Rabbi's website is at www.divreinavon.com.
Okay, we're back. You are watching the 3rd annual International Temple Mount Awareness Day celebration, and I have the privilege to be here with Rabbi Maurice Navon. Hello, Rabbi.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's great to have you here. And we're now going to talk about something that might seem a little bit to the side of the temple, but I want to address that. We're going to talk about Techelet. So before we get into some specific questions, why don't you just tell our listeners and our viewers what Techelet is?
So Techelet, really is a world in of itself. But Tachlis, as they say, fundamentally, practically speaking, Techelet is a color that we get from this creature called the Chilazon, and which the Gemara, the Masorah of the Jews, explains we must get from this creature called the Chilazon, and it is a blue color that's supposed to represent God's holy throne.
Now, Jewish males wear tzitzit, fringes on a 4-cornered garment, and it seems that the original color of the tzitzit should have been this Techelet, should have been this blue-colored.
Correct.
And yet, for generations, we've been wearing white tzitzit.
Correct. So that's right.
So what's up with that?
Right. So that's a very difficult problem. Which when I was very young and realized that when I was reading the Shema that it says that you have to put tzitzit, these fringes on your garment, and they should have a blue string. I said, where's the blue string? Where's the blue string? And really, from the time that I was a kid and realized that until I was an adult and found what we believe today is really the source of the blue dye, I was always searching for it. And you're correct. We are supposed to have this blue string. The reason we don't have or haven't had this blue string is because we haven't had the chilazon, this creature that produces the blue dye. And now there's all kinds of estimations of when that creature was lost. Rav Herzog basically explains that the Gemara brings the last positive mention of the blue dye in use. And so from the Gemara's standpoint, basically the Gemara was closed around 550. All right, so if it was closed in the year 550 of the Common Era, so that's the last time we know for sure that they had it. The next time that we read about Techelet in Jewish sources in the Midrash Tanchuma, and it says, and now we only have white. So that Midrash was closed in around 750 CE. Okay, so something, Rav Herzog says, happened between 550 and 750. Rav Herzog points to the 639, which is basically the year of the Arab conquest of the Middle East, which put an end to basically everything and all that was going on here and whatever remnant of a dye industry there was. So, according to Rav Herzog, we're talking about between 1400 years that Techelet was lost to the Jewish people.
So if it was lost for 1,300 years, how is it that we suddenly found it again?
Right.
Where did it go?
Right. Okay, so there's, just like I was enthusiastic as a kid to try and find where is this blue dye, there's been many people throughout the generations that have tried to find it. And most notably, the first person was the Radziner Rabbi. And he, in the 1800s, set out on a quest also as part of the quest to really put together the pieces of the puzzle for the temple. And so he said, we need these dyes. And so he went on a quest for the Techelet. And he found this Sepia officinalis, a cuttlefish, in the Naples aquarium. It was the closest thing that he saw that matched the identifications in the Gemara. And so he was able to produce a blue dye from this squid. Now, later research by Rav Herzog actually showed that this blue dye is not coming from the squid juice, okay, or the cuttlefish juice. The cuttlefish puts out a black ink, and the Radziner went to the dyers of his day and said, is there some way to get this black ink blue? Now, the Radziner knew that the source of the dye, that is the blue substance, has to come from the chilazon, this creature. But he also knew, the Gemara talks about the fact that you add chemicals in order that the dye sets in the fabric. And so he knew that chemicals were acceptable, but that they shouldn't actually be influencing the color. Unfortunately for him, he was duped by the chemists of his day, and they gave him the formula for Prussian blue, which is a well-known synthetic dye that the blue color comes from the iron filings that are put into the substance, and the squid juice is basically burned off.
So wait a minute.
Okay.
So you have all these Radziners wearing a blue tchelet from the Rebbe.
Correct.
And you're saying that blue tchelet from the Rebbe may not be really tchelet.
Yes.
So what happens now? What are they supposed to do?
So, I believe that if the Radziner Rebbe were alive today, he would say this is not the right stuff anymore, right? He would, because it's been proven, he did not know this, but it's been proven that the blue comes from the iron filings, does not come from the sepia officinalis. So there's nothing really to talk about in terms of his dye. Now, in terms of the people who are continuing to wear that, it's very nice. It's a show of allegiance with their Rebbe and their Masorah, and that's very good. And in terms of fulfilling the mitzvah of tzitzit, the Gemara already talks about people who try to fulfill the mitzvah of tzitzit and put this blue dye, which they believe is techelet, but it's a forgery. And even in the times of the Gemara, there was a forgery dye known as kala ilan that came from a ubiquitous plant that they made blue from. And so the Gemara talks about, what if somebody by accident, or somebody he was duped, somebody cheated him and sold him fake blue dye. What happens to him? And they say, lo yehe ela levan. It's no worse than just wearing white. As long as you are honestly trying to fulfill the mitzvah. So it's true, you're not fulfilling the mitzvah of blue, but you are fulfilling the mitzvah of tzitzit. You don't have to worry about it. So that's, I believe, the category of those people.
So, Radziners aside, you say that there is now more proof of what the real techelet is.
Correct. So, so around the same time that the Radziner went on his quest, serendipitously, some secular scholars, particularly one by the name of Henri Lacaz-Dutier, happened to be in the Mediterranean.
That's easy for you to say.
What's that?
That's easy for you to say.
Right. Well, I've worked on it. So in any case, he was on some fisherman's ship in the Mediterranean, and he saw the fishermen taking out nets, and they were finding snails were caught in their nets. They were actually trying to get fish, not snails. They found these snails, and they would just break them open and rub them on their shirts and watch the colors change on their shirts in the sun. So this, the Professor Henri Lacaz-Dutier, who was a zoologist, and he said, this is not just child's play. This could be the source of the ancient dyes, because it was known that the ancients used all kinds of creatures to make dyes. And so later research with him, he believed, in fact, that this was the source of the ancient blue and purple dye that the Egyptians used, and the Greeks and the Romans and all the peoples, Pliny and Aristotle, they document the use of purpura snails for blue and purple dyes. So he was basically the one attributed with finding this anew in the late 1800s, around the same time as the Radziner was working on this. Unfortunately for them, there wasn't internet and instant information, and so I believe that he was either unaware of it or unaware of its capabilities to make blue dye.
So has that blue dye, is that what's being used now?
Yes. So today there's still a long way from Henri Lacaz-Dutier till the Jews would finally accept it, because even though you'll open any secular encyclopedia and you'll read about this, that this is the source of the ancient dye, the Jews still needed to match all the criteria to those that are found in the Gemara. And that's what's really been going on for the past, say 25, 30 years of scholars going through Gemaras and Midrashim and all kinds of sources and trying to match up all of those sources with the physical characteristics of this snail known as the Murex trunculus.
Now, it seems, because there are people wearing techelet, and not just the Radziner techelet, that has now been accepted as a proper way of making tzitzit?
I don't know what you mean by accepted, right?
Well, are we talking about a fringe element, pardon the pun?
I think it's taken on something more large than a fringe element. It's been around already for close to 20 years. And over that time, we've gone from selling, a few sets out of a garage to now we're a little bit bigger than a garage and a caravan, but nevertheless, we sell between 900 to 1,000 sets a month.
No, but what's the big deal? If I have white tzitzit or I have tzitzit with chelet, I'm still saying Shema, I'm still a good Jew. Why should I even bother with this?
Okay, so, that's a good question. First of all, I don't question your good Judaism in any way, shape, or form by the tzitzit you wear, right? We're supposed to not check people in their tzitzit. But, on the other hand, there are mitzvot, commandments in the Torah. And like we said, we read in the Shema, v'natnu al tzitzit hakanaf b'til techelet. There's not that many mitzvot deoraita, commandments straight from the Torah. Putting on a blue string is part of that, is one of those commandments. And if you don't have it, you don't have the mitzvah.
So we're so machmir about, we're so stringent about observing so many of the commandments. How it boggles the mind. It seems like this is something which it's right there. We say it 3 times a day, and yet we've allowed it to lapse. And now in 20 years, there seems to be controversy, and still everyone isn't wearing techelet.
That's true.
So why is there such a gap if it's such a basic mitzvah?
I think that there's a reticence among the Jewish people in general and among very religious people in specific to take on new things and to find change. I sort of parallel the finding and acceptance of Techelet with the reestablishment of the state. Of course, the two things are huge in their difference. One is a tiny little string, and one is the home, national home of the people. But nevertheless, you can't hide from the fact that the two of these things are mitzvot deoraita, at least according to the Ramban. We won't get into that whole discussion. But living in the land of Israel is a mitzvah from the Torah that we read about throughout the entire Torah. Right? I once heard Rabbi David Aaron from the Old City talking about the fact that if you gave the Torah to a 13-year-old, whatever, elementary school kid and told him, read the book and tell me what's the plot. It's basically a story of a people coming to their land, which is the land of Israel. So whether it's a mitzvah deoraita or not, it's definitely the gist of the Torah is to come to this land. But yet, you also find that half the people are still out, and we're still waiting for this renaissance for people to wake up to the fact that we have the land of Israel after 2,000 years. So too, we have this blue dye, which, interesting enough, is the symbol of the land of Israel, the state of Israel, right? And we have this dye. We can now fulfill this mitzvah, and it's not just about fulfilling this mitzvah. This mitzvah is equal to all the mitzvot. You see this mitzvah, you see the string, you remember the commandments, you remember God. The Rabbi Meir says that Techelet domeh leyam v'yam l'rakil, l'rakil l'kisei hakavod. This reminds us of the sea and the sky and God's holy throne. It's not easy to remember God in our daily lives, and this is that reminder, right? The Ramban says that the reminder that the Torah talks about is not the white strings, it's specifically the blue string, right? So we're talking about something very powerful and really very huge. Now, I'm not saying it's the size of the state of Israel, but unfortunately the way the Jewish people relate to Techelet is sort of the way they relate to the state of Israel. It's a nice thing. Some people support it more, some people support it less. How many people are really coming here? It's the same thing with Techelet. Some people support it more, some people support it less. I have friends that bought it and put it in their drawers as an insurance policy, just like people who buy themselves an apartment here as an insurance policy.
So if you have Techelet and you're wearing Techelet, are you doing something extra special? Are you like in a select group? Are you in a special club now of Techelet wearers? Or are you just being a regular Jew fulfilling your mitzvahs?
Yeah, I believe that we're just being a regular Jew fulfilling the mitzvah as it's supposed to be fulfilled. What's his name? Rashi, I'm sorry. Rashi basically says that in fact somebody who's not wearing Techelet eino mekayem mitzvah shlema. And so that's basically it. I mean, if you want to fulfill the mitzvah in its complete form, you have to be wearing the blue string.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It's pretty mind-blowing. And for all of our friends that are watching and listening, this is something that I think we have to integrate this concept into our thinking, that there are aspects of our Jewish life that we have either ignored or have let fall by the wayside. And now if it's in our hands, if we're able to do something about it, we have to do something about it. But how do we get beyond the fact, well, everybody isn't wearing it. All the Torah scholars haven't come down and told us wear tchelet. Our leaders aren't all wearing tchelet. How do we get beyond that? We're supposed to follow the leaders.
That's true. We are supposed to follow the leaders, but I heard Rav Drori, who's the Rosh Yeshiva of Kiryat Shmona, and he had a conversation with Rav Avram Shapira, who was the Rosh Yeshiva of Merkaz Rav, and they were talking about Tchelet, and Rav Shapira said that Am Yisrael can basically decide if this is it, by them wearing it. This is going to be a grassroots effort. He said Am Yisrael is going to decide the big poskim, the big decisors in Jewish law are basically abstaining themselves from the discussion, and they're waiting for Am Yisrael to decide. I think it's the parallel to the state of Israel is exactly the same. You know, when I decided to come to this country, I had many rabbis around me. No one said go, no one said don't go. Everybody basically said, you do what you think you need to do.
It's very empowering to the individual to hear this. It's very empowering to be able to say, I can, in fact, if we all get together, we can change the destiny of the Jewish people. So I know that Rabbi Richman is going to be back with you after a short break, but before we get there, one other question. How does this fit in to the temple? Here we're talking about Techelet. You've mentioned the state of Israel, but we haven't mentioned the temple yet. Where is the connection between Techelet and the Beit HaMikdash?
Well, like I expressed before, that the Radziner Rebbe and many rabbis in that time in the 1800s were trying to put together the pieces for the temple because, as you know, the Temple Institute is involved in trying to put together all the pieces of the puzzle so that when we finally do get the gumption to go and put that building there, we'll have all the other pieces. And so Techelet is an integral part. I mean, the Big Day Kahuna, the clothing of the high priest, has to have Techelet in it. The fact that we have a string is basically just a sign that all the Jewish people are in some way connected to the priesthood because we are a nation of priests. And so that Techelet is really only a small symbol of the fact that we're priests, but we need it in its full glory on the high priest in the temple. So it's definitely a critical piece of the puzzle.
Where does one get Techelet?
We have a website, Techelet with a K, TEKHELET.com. There's orders there. There's all kinds of information there. We basically believe in promoting the information and the idea and letting people, like you said, becoming empowered and making the decision for themselves. So in fact, our fearless leader, Joel Guberman, has decided that really the orders form should be very low on the scale. First you'll get into all kinds of information. He'll probably kill me for saying that. But at the very bottom, you'll find somewhere a place to click and order, actually, the strings. Is
it reasonable to think that we can we afford Techelet? Is it something that the normal Jew can go out and just do?
Well, yes and no. The fact of the matter is that the Gemara itself says that one of the signs of Techelet is that it's expensive. And intrinsically, Techelet is expensive because it takes many snails to put together even a few strings. Just to put 4 strings together, we need approximately 30 snails to extract the necessary amount of dye. And the Gemara cites specifically that lefichach demav yekarim, because it's hard to acquire and hard to obtain all the dye that's necessary, so it's expensive. And so the fact of the matter is that today it's still reasonable, but if you compare it to white strings, it's close to 10 to 15 times more expensive than one set of white strings.
This is fascinating. We're going to take a break. Rabbi Richman will be back to continue this discussion. I want to just say a few things. Number one, I want to thank the Shraga family for making today's event possible. The Shraga family is really, really behind today's event, and all this information, Techelet, all the other information that's coming to you we have to thank them right away. Second of all, if you want to be involved with the Temple Institute, you want to be involved in bringing the Beit HaMikdash into a reality, you can go to the website, www.templeinstitute.org, and click on the donate button, and you can be a supporter of the Temple Institute. You can also call 1-800-940-9121. The operators are still standing by to take your donations. Rabbi Navon, it's great meeting you. Stay here. Everybody, don't go away. We'll be back with Rabbi Richman in just a minute.
Shalom and welcome back to the third annual International Temple Mount Awareness Day. We're moving towards the conclusion of our program this evening. We are sitting with a very fascinating Rabbi Maurice Navon of the Patil Tchelet organization, and I feel such a commonality with you because you're talking about doing a mitzvah, like what is that slogan, just do it, because this is the way that it's supposed to be done, which is of course exactly what our whole concept of the Holy Temple is. And I have to tell you, and I knew you were coming, there's one particular question I wanted to ask you, but you already answered it with Steve. Okay. I wanted to ask you how you see the implications of the renewal of the mitzvah of Techelet and the production of the color, what that connection has with the state of Israel and the scenario of the redemption and the rebuilding of the Holy Temple. And I think you really spelled it out, that they're really the same aspect. So I got to tell you a little story. Go ahead. I was once giving a lecture about the Holy Temple, and I was facing a lot of opposition just because people think that they're just not ready to hear these things. And there was a guy in the front row who was really having a very hard time with everything that I was saying. And at one point, he leaned over, and like there was just a little table separating between me and him. He leaned over, and he lifted up my jacket, and he saw that I was wearing Techelet, and he said, "Oh, you're one of those. Mm-hmm. Now I got it. Mm-hmm. Now I see it. I understand. Now I have you pegged." It's like, so I have to ask you, because your explanation of how this is the integral part of the mitzvah, the original tzitzit that God commanded us is with the blue, and there are so many more people now. You gave a figure, like almost 1,000 people a month that are buying it. I need to ask you this. Why do you think there is a certain amount of opposition yet? In other words, there are some people that are so against this, that find it so threatening. And I guess it's the same people that find the concept of the rebuilding of the Holy Temple threatening. And we're not really doing anything new. We're saying this is the original Torah. But yet you find that people have a very hard time with that.
Right, you're right. I mean, it is strange. I happen to be one of those people that when I see something and I feel that this is the right thing to do, so I go and I do it, right? I mean, that's how I'm in the land of Israel. And so, in a sense, that guy who lifted up your coat and said, "I understand," he was right. The fact of the matter is that it's those same people that get themselves on a plane and change their whole entire lives, are those same people that say, "Wow, there's enough information today to show that this really is the original die, and this is what God commanded us, and that's really what we're trying to do." And in answer to the question previously about, am I a different Jew, a special Jew? I'm really not. I mean, I'm just trying to do what the good book says, right? Mm-hmm. And so I believe that we have found that original source, which God commanded us to put on our tzitzit, on our fringes of our four-cornered garments, and there's a huge implication to that. Not just that it shows who we are, that we're people that believe that we should get out there and do something, that that we're people who take action, but also what this mitzvah means. I mean, this mitzvah means that we believe that we need to remember all of God's commandments all the time and try to fulfill them. That's what we're here for.
And all you're really trying to do is encourage the Jewish people to keep the mitzvah the way it was originally given at Sinai. So you shouldn't be branded as a revolutionary. Your picture should be on a postage stamp. Right. I mean, you're talking about returning to the authentic Torah. The authentic Torah, Rabbi Maurice Navon, is Techelet. It's the Holy Temple. It's living in Eretz Israel. So is there something wrong with us, or are we hearing a different song? Are we,
I don't know. Like I said before, I think people are sort of reticent to change, and some people are more ready for it than others. And those that are reticent, I mean, they have their reasons. A lot of times, people jump to change, which isn't correct. But I think that today, in terms of the land of Israel, the state of Israel has been established and is strong, Baruch Hashem, right? And I mean, I think that we're here still is a sign from God, right? Is miraculous. I think also that all the amount of information behind the revelation or the renaissance of Techelet is enough that people can feel confident in making that change back to the biblical mitzvah. And I think that we're ready for the temple. but that has a lot of other ramifications.
Right. So, but we can say that the connection between the tchelet color and the Holy Temple isn't just the priestly garments, and it isn't just the weavings in the temple. It's also the mentality of, instead of just extrapolating the commandment until it becomes something that's only symbolic, just taking it for its face value. The idea here is trying to fulfill the Torah, and that's what we are as Jews.
Right. And I mean, there's something very interesting about taking on this mitzvah, or trying to find and create new ways to fulfill the mitzvot. Rav Soloveitchik divides man between species man and man of God. And species man, he talks about the man that just goes and basically responds to his biological drives. And he is a man like every other man, but he doesn't distinguish himself. How do you distinguish yourself? Is by creativity and by activity and by going out. And if you see that there's something that needs to be done, you go and you do it, even if it means changing, against the stream. And so, eventually the stream may or may not come with you, but if you believe that you are trying to do something purposeful, then that's, I believe, being man of God as opposed to being species man.
I'd like you also to mention to all of our viewers the name of your website. Because you have a very beautiful website with a lot of your own original Torah thoughts.
Thank you very much. Okay, my website is Divrei Navon. My last name is Navon, so these are my writings. Divrei Navon is DIVREINAVON.com. And there, like you said, I basically put up all kinds of different articles that I've, Torah thoughts and ideas.
You've actually been published in quite a number of places. You have some very original ideas. And I went to DivreiNavon.com to see what kind of a fellow you are in preparation for our segment here together. And I found this article that I am very enamored of. A lot of very beautiful things there, but this one caught my eye. It's called Anticipation and Consummation, A Perspective on the Shofar. And in this paper, you wrote something which has just been such an important idea for me in our temple work for so many years, and that is this kind of perception, this insight that the Jewish people, throughout their diaspora experience, have developed a certain kind of, a certain kind of idiosyncratic, maybe it's even a subconscious defense mechanism that not only resists change, but that actually romanticizes just waiting. One day God will come and everything will be different, and instead of doing it for ourselves now.
Right. This is what I talk about in that article is the idea of singing, next year in Jerusalem, whether it's at the end of the Seder, which B'ezrat Hashem in a couple of weeks we'll be celebrating, next year in Jerusalem for kids means let's go there. What are we waiting for? But as you become older and you become more sedated and you become more in your own ways, so then next year in Jerusalem becomes a nice song of nostalgia that you remember as a kid singing. And if you actually went to Jerusalem, you would ruin that, right? And so you can't just sing it anymore. Now you have to live it. But I think that, that's the idea of breaking the gap between species man and man of God, of taking action and not just, sitting in your comfort.
Right. And we feel that very strongly every year with the whole cycle of the 3 weeks of mourning for the Holy Temple and Tisha B'Av, and what we actually refer to as the mourning game. It's a certain kind of road that we go through, and we expunge our guilt, and it reaches like a certain kind of pinnacle, and it pops with the 9th of Av, and then we just go back to business, and it's something that we almost look forward to as a people, this whole cycle. And so here you come along, you and the members of your organization, and with tremendous self-sacrifice and dedication and scholarship, you're focusing on the renewal of an original Torah commandment. And yet there are people that find that very disconcerting.
Right. I'm not really familiar with that many people that are so concerned. There are little voices here and there. They may be concerned that we are actually trying to do what Rav Avram Shapira said, and that is, change the face of halacha from the bottom up. But I don't find that there's so many people like that, you know. I think that the people who aren't wearing it, they want to wear it, they're not sure why, you know. We have guys from the Mir Yeshiva that sneak out and come to hear lectures, or like, I mean, there's guys that really, it's Mesirut Nefesh. They got themselves a cab and brought themselves to Dor Beach to come and snorkel with me and find the snails and talk about Tchelet. There's a yearning, just like there's a yearning for spirituality and a yearning for the Jewish people to return to their roots and to their really their mission to be a priest, to a nation of priests to all the world. There's a yearning. But on the other hand, some people are blocked by the fact that, you know, they have to listen to higher ups and so forth, and which is a good thing to an extent.
And can it be deeper also? And when I ask you if it can be deeper, I refer to the tradition that I'm sure you're familiar with that makes a direct connection between the re-emergence of the Tchelet and the redemption itself.
Yes.
Several cryptic references in various sources.
Yeshuot Malko says that the revelation of Tchelet is a harbinger of the Mashiach. So, the question is, I mean, do you see our days as the footsteps of Mashiach, or you don't?
Right. And I guess that's also a choice that we make.
Right.
But certainly the emergence in our time of the Tchelet and the adoption, the acceptance of the mitzvah by so many thousands of Jews in our time shows that something is going on. There is a desire to return to basics, to the real Torah, the authentic Torah, the Torah of Eretz Yisrael, the Torah of the Mikdash. And this is really I think it's the trend of our generation. So you're playing a role in the cutting edge of destiny.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we all are. The question is, like Rav Soloveitchik talks about, the difference between fate and destiny. It's really that same difference between species man and man of God. Right? Are you going to take into your hands to change the world, to make it a better place and fulfill God's will to complete creation, or are you going to sit and watch it go by?
And you're certainly not sitting and watching it go by. Rabbi Mois Navon with us from the organization of B'til Tchelet, making a choice and reviving the ancient commandment of Tchelet, a very integral part of temple consciousness. And you've been with us through the 3rd annual International Temple Mount Awareness Day, our salute, our celebration, our joyous unity in the reality of the Temple Mount and the Holy Temple.
You are watching the 3rd annual International Temple Mount Awareness Day celebration. And what a celebration it's been. This has been 6 hours of the most energized, energetic information that could possibly be like just thrown out at you. I hope you've had a chance to start to integrate all of the stuff that's been told to you throughout the course of today's program. I just want to say, personally, it is a zchut, it's a privilege, it's a thrill to think that in 3 years, Radio Free Nachlaot has had the ability to help bring Temple Mount awareness to the entire world. When Lorelei and I started Radio Free Nachlaot, we said, you know, we want to beam out information from Jerusalem. We want to bring music, we want to bring feel-good vibes to the whole world from the center of the universe, from Jerusalem. And the fact that we can bring information about the Beit HaMikdash to the whole world is beyond my expectations. So I just want to thank the Temple Institute for allowing us to be part of this.
Amen.
It's just been an amazing, amazing thing.
Amen, amen. And the Temple Institute and the teachings of Rabbi Chaim Richman and the great Temple Talk program by Chaim Richman and Yitzhak Reuven has been an integral part of our programming from day one of Radio Free Nachlaot. You can always hear them on our station at random times and at scheduled times. We play Temple Talk Wednesdays at 7 p.m. and we play Rabbi Richman's Parsha Shavua Thursdays at 7 p.m. But we also play it randomly all day long during Thursdays and on Fridays. You know, he's always around. He's been part of our programming since day one, and it's just really huge for us. I recently, just a few minutes ago, called an old friend in the Old City to see if the Holy Temple has been rebuilt yet during this program. They said no, not quite yet, but it all looks really shiny over there, and it feels like the whole vibe there in the Old City of Jerusalem tonight feels different. I said, Manish Tana Halala Hazan. They said, why is tonight different from every other night? Because Tonight we've managed to raise temple consciousness and bring awareness of the Holy Temple to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of viewers all around the world who've been watching this program. And again, we thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all your donations. You can still donate. You'll be able to donate for days, months. We're going to keep this 800 number forever. It's 800-940-9121, toll-free from the United States. And of course, you can donate on our website or on the Temple Institute's website. I also want to thank our friends at Be There Israel, the live streaming video broadcasting experts. You guys, you've been watching this all because of Be There Israel, www.BeThereIsrael.com. If you've got an event of any kind, it doesn't have to be a 6-hour-long Temple Mount awareness program. And if it is, I'm going to be seeing you in court. But it could be a wedding, it could be a conference, it could be any other kind of thing that they would be happy to broadcast from Israel to anyone, anywhere in the world. So check them out on the web, www.BeThereIsrael.com.
And on behalf of Rabbi Richman and myself and the entire Temple Institute, we'd like to thank Radio Free Nachlaot, Steve and Lorelei and the entire staff.
That's
us.
And it's been great working with you. And of course, next year our plan is to be broadcasting from the Temple Mount in preparation of the Korban Pesach, of the Passover offering. That's the plan.
Thank you, Hashem, for giving us this opportunity for the 3rd annual International Temple Mount Awareness Day.
That's why we have a rabbi.
Yeah,
Thank you, Hashem, for Radio Free Nachlaot and for Be There Israel. Thank you, Hashem, for all of the people that have been watching all over the world, that have joined us in our celebration of the Temple Mount, Temple Consciousness. Thank you to the Shraga family of America that has made this broadcast possible this year on the level that hopefully you have all enjoyed it. And especially also we want to thank our supporters and sponsors who have called in, who have participated in sponsorship. And I'm going to try to read a lot of names now of those of you out there who have taken upon yourselves to be part of the 3rd annual International Temple Mount Awareness Day. Sylvia G. Harlan, Mevin Frank, Eva Reeves, George Koo Jr., Karen Burt, Darla Sanderson Deckard, in the merit of her 9 grandchildren, Chaim, Sef, David, Chenya, Tzaitel, Sophia, Alitza, Shuli, and Sikh, Cynthia and Richard Tomaskovic, Christopher and Margaret Collins, Bruce Coffron, Philip Averbuck, Manfred Wolf, Jim Wengard, Nigav Van Dyong, Michael Eric Schofield, Tuvia Holshausen, Son and Robert Brisky, Carmine David Deladone, Aryeh Sonnenberg, John S. Carter, Mary H. Spitz, Trey L. John, Brad Gaskell, Bill Gibson, Ramona Edwards, Mr. and Mrs. Lester Goldsmith, Oliver Baldridge, Jordan M. Smith, Crockett Cox, Mar L. Didier, Bertram Cohen, Gisela Oritz, Mrs. Rena Cohen, Joy Beth Holly, David Sternlight, South Plains Hebraic Center, Jerris Cribbs, and the Jane Brown in the merit of her granddaughters Libby and Hayden. And once again, our thanks to the Shraga family of America, to Hashem, blessed be his name, for the promise of the Holy Temple, for our lives, for your lives, for all of us together united in the spirit, the joy, the consciousness, the renewal, the resolve of the Holy Temple speedily in our days. Amen.
And if we missed any names, if your donation came and we didn't get it in the studio, we'll add your names, of course, on our website. We thank you even in absentia of your name.
So people, you know what? It's been 6 hours, but it seems like it's been about 5 minutes, right? Not just because the guests were so amazing. We had Moshe Feiglin at the beginning of the program who gave an outstanding presentation, a very, very compelling presentation.
Got my vote.
Got my vote. And by the way, you'll be able to watch this again and again because it's going to be up on YouTube, on Be There Israel's channel. You'll be able to find it by searching for Be There Israel on YouTube, hopefully before Shabbos, but for sure by the beginning of next week. And if you have any problems finding the recording of this broadcast, just get in touch with us. Call Chaim Richman on the phone, send him an email, and he'll tell you exactly where to find it. And if you check us out on Facebook, you'll be seeing links to it all over the place. So you'll be able to watch Moshe Feiglin all over again. You'll be able to watch Yisrael Medad. You'll be able to watch
Rabbi Nachman Kahana.
Yeah. And
Yehuda Katz and his band.
and
Tzipora Pilitz.
right.
And Hillel Richman and Frankie Snyder.
And
Yeah.
Rabbi Moise
And Rabbi
Navon.
Moise Navon.
That's right. All over again.
And the rest.
And us, but
You
you
get
know,
to see us all again.
it's not about us. It's never been about us. We're not interested in being your big video webcasting stars. No. We really are not. We're very modest, quiet, retiring people. We just like to keep to ourselves. But mainly the only reason we're doing this is because we need the Holy Temple. We need to rebuild it. We need you to be passionate about it and excited about it. And I think that, all things considered, we've reached the goal of our program tonight.
I'd just like to, again, thank the Shraga family of America for their incredible support, financial as well as emotional, spiritual. They've been behind this the whole time, and we are grateful.
And I also want to be able to thank the video production experts and the awesome cast and crew here at the Jerusalem Media Group. We are at the Givat Shaul studios of the Jerusalem Media Group, and if you have a video production that you want to get done, you should call them, because obviously if you've been watching, you see the extremely high quality work they do. They have our highest recommendation, www.jerusalemmediagroup.com. Check them out on the web.
Once again, thank you to all of our sponsors who have heard the call, who have come forward and joined us and participated in making this event a reality, and in participating in the continuing work, the holy work of the Temple Institute towards the rebuilding of the Holy Temple.
I think it's time to roll up our sleeves and get to work.
I'm so glad we've had this time together, people. So be good. Don't forget about the Holy Temple. Listen to Temple Talk and Parsha Shavua and everything else. You can hear them all the time on universaltorah.network.com.
And
Radio Free
Nachal
Nachal
Oath.
Oath.
Radio Free Nachal Oath, people. So over and out. Laila Tov, Shavua Tov. The
Chodesh-
redemption is coming. Chodesh Tov. Nisan is here. Yay.
לזכר קודשו והודו, לזכר קודשו הודו, לזכר קודשו והודו, לזכר קודשו. למען יזמר לך כבוד, יזמר לך כבוד, ולא ידור. למען יזמר לך כבוד, יזמר לך כבוד, ולא ידור. שיבתי אליך, ותרפאני, שמע השם בחנני, השם היה עוזר לי. למען יזמר לך כבוד, יזמר לך כבוד, ולא ידור. למען יזמר לך כבוד, יזמר לך כבוד, ולא ידור. אליך השם אקרא, ואל השם אתחנן, ברצונך אמרת להרי עוז. הסתרת פניך, הייתי